Hi, everyone, and welcome back to an advisor's look at Layout Pro. Today, we're going to go through some of the processes and procedures of just getting set up for the year. I know probably you guys are the same as me, and that it's been a bit chaotic just getting into the school year for this year because of how every school is different. Some are virtual, some are part time. And then you have your kids of your own. I myself have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. So it's been a little bit crazy getting back into this school year. But I will tell you that Layout Pro makes it so much easier with how things are set up to help you as an advisor be able to just go through and easily set up everything for your year. So I'm going to share my screen with you now so that way you can see just how easy it is to get started with Layout Pro for this school year. All right, so here we are at Yearbook Avenue. We're going to get signed in for our 2021 year. Now, for the big pieces of getting started, the first one is making sure that your staff can get in, get online, and all of that. So if we go to where we have plan and staff, this will allow you to be able to add your staff members so that they can all get used to the platform. And that's the very first thing I do for my year. I go ahead, I get my roster, and I start adding students. So we went to plan and we went to staff, and that pulls up this page right here. We just click over here where it says add staff on the far right, and then we can add our students. Now, there's a couple of things that I try to do to make it as easy on them as possible. For their student logins for our school, they do first initial, middle initial, and last name. You could keep it the same way, whatever your student login is. For some schools, they have their entire email address to log in, and so that may be a little bit more difficult. I try to make it as easy as possible, and I make everyone's the same format so that there's no question about how to get in to Yearbook Avenue. Since it's only our yearbook staff that's using it, I also make the password the same for everybody, so that way, if they're not losing it and they're not having to make something different and weird or whatnot from everybody else. So if I need, I've got to add June Smith. So I'm going to put June is the first name, Smith is the last name. For the username, I always keep everything lowercase, and I'm just going to do J Smith. And so it's first initial and last name, and it's that way for every student I have. If they have a hyphenated last name, everything just goes together. If they have two last names, everything goes together, just to make it one cohesive way. The password that I always set for my staff is yearbook, and I always put what year we're in that we're going to have the book. So it's 2021, and then you just type it again. And then for the email, I add their school email address so that way if there's a question and or I need to send an email to all of my staff, I have all of my emails in Yearbook Avenue already, and I could send an email out to everyone at the same time. So her email address is jmsmith@destin.k12.nc.us. Okay, and then the role is just as a staff member. And then right here, though, the one thing that I always want to make sure of with the images, I click the images in the download images. Sometimes this is essential so that my staff can then download the image and make it larger on another computer screen, or have it to print out to take with them somewhere to where they're not always in Yearbook Avenue when they're having to identify students. So I always click this download images as on, so that way if they need to have an image with them somewhere else, they can download it to whatever device that they're on, make it bigger so they can see who people are, or whatever the need may be with that. So for any staff member, I always do that so they can download the images as well. Under the create, I leave those settings the same. We always want create an index on. For the cell, there's not anything in there that needs to be on for staff members. For the page ladder, you want them to always be able to view the ladder. You want them to always be able to edit if there's something that needs to change on there. So I leave it as edit sections and edit descriptors. However, if you set that as the advisor and you don't want them to touch it, then just click that one off. Okay. And then for the plan on this one, I always leave all this off because these are things that we create or talk about together as a staff, where we are setting up our fonts, our styles, and things of that nature. So once they're set, I don't want them to go in and change anything. So I leave those so that they don't have access to that. Then I just click save, and then my person has been added to my list. So now let's say that we have June, that she's going to not just be a staff member anymore, but now she's going to be one of my editors. So all I have to do then to give her a little bit more access in Layout Pro is I go to June Smith, I click edit, and then right here where it says role, all I have to do then is change that role to editor. And then there's a few more privileges that they can have. That editorship lets them be able to look on someone else's assigned pages. So if they had their own, but then they're also, going to read someone else's, they can actually go onto those other people's pages. As a staff member, you can only go onto the pages that you are actually assigned to, if the pages are assigned. So that would be what you would want to do to change that role. Okay, so that's the very first thing I do when getting started in this. Okay, the next piece is when I go to plan, I want to go to my page ladder, because it's very important that you have kind of the setup and knowledge of how you want your ladder to go. Okay, now the great thing that Jostens does, when we've loaded the section titles and descriptions, so everything from last year, you have the option of carrying over to this year so that your sections can be the same and all of that. But guys, let me just tell you, your sections are probably not going to be quite the same as they were last year because of everything that went on with the whole COVID situation, and everything this year is probably going to be so different from everything else. But don't worry, we are all in the same boat. Okay, but if you do want to load last year's designs or descriptions, you have that option right there. Okay, so then you can start designing for your ladder. You can set your deadlines, your descriptions, who you want it assigned to. So right here with this practice page on 2 and 3, if I want to assign this particular page to June, I just go to where it says staff, and then I can click where it says unassigned staff, and then I can find June's name and assign it to June. Okay, now that's only going to assign this side, so I'm also going to want to assign the other side so it's a full spread. We have run into a time when I forgot to do one of them, and then they can only edit on one page. So make sure that you do both pages of the spread so that way they can see and be able to do that. Then you must click save so that it saves it, so that then that is now assigned to June. So you're not going to have other staff members then coming in and messing up June's stuff. If it's assigned to June, June's going to be the one that's able to go in there and do all those other things. Okay, now if you've got the second person, in most of mine, they work in a team. So if June is working with Jackson, then we can click down here and I can go and pick Jackson's name from my list and put him on the other part of that. And it's always a good idea to have a couple people, I think, because of the fact that you have your students and they're going through stuff. If they are working on something on their own, at some point they're probably going to need some help. Your secondary person that you may want to assign may be your editor. You might want to put your editor as your second assignee on a particular page, and that would be totally fine. But as soon as you've got your sections there, and then you just click save, and then you've got it. Okay, so that was the next piece. So we've gone through, we already got our staff members with their logins. Those are all set up. We've got our pages and what page numbers are going to be assigned to certain students. And as far as designing your ladder and setting all that up, for me and my staff, we do that one together as a group, and we go through and we plan out what we want to cover. Now let me come back to you for a second. I know that for a fact, this year is going to be crazy different than it has been before. So let me just reassure you again, we are in the same boat, people. We are. And it is totally okay to not know what you want to do yet, okay? Now, one thing that I've asked one of my staff members, because we are here in North Carolina, we got a schedule of the anticipated time frame that sports were going to be allowed to start. It's very different than it was in years past. So I assigned one of my staffers. I asked her, I said, okay, I need for you to plan a calendar for us so that we know when sports are going to start overlapping each other. And we're going to assign 2 staff members per sport for the days that they would usually cover. So she's working on this calendar, and we're going to get it. It's actually going to be shared with me tomorrow. So when I get it, I'll make you another video and share it with you guys, okay? But we're planning that so that way we can just kind of anticipate now how many students we're going to need to be able to cover events. Because if, let's just say, for example, if there's a football game that's going to be held in the spring instead of fall now, then we also may have a baseball game that's also being held. Maybe those 2 events are overlapping. Well, I would need a couple of students to stay and take pictures for football. I'm going to need a couple other students to make sure that we're getting some baseball pictures. And then softball may be at the same time as well. There's 2 more students. So I may need 6 students to stay after at some point in a week in February. Okay. So if that's the case, we're going ahead and planning now so that that way we can say, I can say to my students and say, hey, I'm going to need some people to stay after for these particular days so that that way they're prepared and they know that we're going to have events where there's going to be a lot of people in a short amount of time to make sure that we have our coverage for our book this year. Other things that we're doing is that we're making sure that some of the things that are coming out, we are going to cover the very first day of school, how everything was. We've got people that, you know, we took some pictures of temperatures being taken, of people wearing masks and going to class, kids getting logged into Chromebooks because that was one of the ways that we're doing most of our classes now. Got teachers working on putting together Canvas courses because that's new to us. We have a whole new learning management system. Okay, so like I said, we're in the same boat and things are just different. However, we're trying to cover all of our stuff that we come across in more of a chronological fashion than we have in the past. For many of us, for where we are, we've always done kind of a traditional style where everything was always in sections. So we're grouping our people together and doing a people section. Everything else is just going to fall chronologically the way it falls this year. So we're going from the first day, working through how the first few days went, and kind of breaking it up into kind of smaller little sections of here's the first 2 to 3 weeks of school. What did we do? What did we cover? How did academics look? Interviewing some students. How did that go? How did you feel about the first few days? Are you adjusting? Are things different? Did you like this better or worse? Doing some polls with some students. Those are the types of things that we're using to create our modules on our pages for the first few spreads of our book. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you one more time to look at one other thing on Layout Pro for this one. Okay, so we've got our sign-in, our student logins. We've got our layouts for our pages and know how to assign our pages. The next thing that we always do is we go through and we actually look together at some of the pre-done layout designs so that students can actually see what they kind of look like on a page so that they know if they really like it or not. Sometimes it's one thing seeing a page in a lookbook, and then it can be a little bit different when you're seeing a design that you want to use in your book, and if you want to change it or tweak it at all. Well, let me take you to this design gallery. This is one place that we will go to together and look through designs of our of the lookbook that have made, or the designs that have made it into the lookbook for year after year. And some of the first weeks of school, this is one of the places that my kids love to go. They look at the designs, they get to go through and see the different layouts, the pictures, and see how things kind of put together. This is a great opportunity to have discussions with your students as well, and or even take a screenshot. That's one of the things I've done before, of where they may be going through, let's pick one right here. So let's say this particular spread right here with the baseball players. If I'm looking at this right here, and especially if you are at a school with an online format this year, what I would do is I would take a screenshot of this right here and or add to my templates. So this added in for you to be able to go back to. And you could actually, because this one's already filled in with pictures, so it gives them a really good idea of what the whole thing should look like completed. If you take a picture of it, you can post it on your online learning platform, okay? And you can ask a discussion question of your students, especially if you're not in person with your students or if you only see them part-time. Ask them their thoughts on what they think about this particular layout. Or if you as the advisor are going through and looking through the design gallery, and let's say that you liked this one right here, and that you loved this particular layout. There are things that you love about it, but you want to know how your staff feels about it, because anything that your staff can feel passionate about or say things that they like, then you know it's going to be something that is going to be worth their time, and they are going to put more effort into it to making it complete. So right here, if this is the one, I would take a picture of it. I would post it on your learning management system, whether it's Canvas, Google Classroom, whatever. I would put the picture up there just for them to see and say, what are the things that you guys like about this particular layout? Are there things that you don't like about this layout? What would you change? And then you can talk about the modules even, how things are separate, and looking at the cutouts of the different pictures, how some are popping out and look more three-dimensional because they've got pieces of the picture actually cut out and not the entire photo. Okay, so some of these things are going to be ways that you can build those relationships with your staff and also get a good feel with your staff as far as what are the things that you can see from them of things they like that they're going to be willing to work hard to complete for you. Well, everybody, that's it for this time around. I hope that it's been very helpful for you just to know the few things about getting started with Layout Pro, being able to go in there, add your staff, maybe having some options on discussions with them about some of the designs they can see in the design gallery, and being able to just build those relationships and figure out what some of the things are that your students like, so that way they'll work really hard for you in this coming school year. The next video that's going to be coming out is going to show everyone how to take a blank layout and be able to start adding photos and designing on your own for the next one. I hope that you guys have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next time on an Advisor's Walk in Layout Pro. Have a good one.